Hello, this is Scott Jentz. Welcome to Sandbox Stories. Hello, welcome to this Sandbox Story, an interview with Dr. Jennifer Stewart. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're an optometrist in Connecticut.
Yes,
You're up there?
correct. I'm in Connecticut.
I heard this story about you getting motivated to get into optometry by a local eye doctor. Is that right?
Correct. Actually, in New York, my neighbor growing up in the Hudson Valley was an optometrist.
Okay. So you get motivated to go to optometry school. Where'd you go?
I went to New England College of Optometry.
Okay. All right. So you're a Northeasterner,
Yes.
all in all. So you have this interesting athletic background. You've been a runner, a triathlete. In triathlons, do you have a strong or weak part of your game?
Well, you would think being a college Division I runner that running would be my strong part, but I was a sprinter and a jumper. So I'm not really a long distance person. So cycling actually turned out to be my strength in triathlons.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Had you cycled before you did triathlons?
No. I mean, growing up, learning how to ride a bike, that was the extent of my cycling ability, but I had never really learned to shift gears, didn't know how to change a tire. So I learned all of this when I started doing triathlons.
Isn't that interesting? To become an over-the-road bicyclist, you do have to learn how to change a tire.
Yes, yes, you should. You should.
You should learn how to change a tire. Did you learn it on a YouTube video or did you actually have a mentor that helped you?
Well, all the above. I tried learning on YouTube. I luckily had a great local bike shop and friends who can change one. And then my husband is an elite triathlete, so he's tried to help me multiple times. I'm still not great at it, but I can do it.
That's awesome. So one of your endeavors that you've tried more recently is Olympic weightlifting. And that doesn't mean you're going to the Olympics, but what is Olympic weightlifting?
So I spent my 20s as an endurance athlete. I competed in sprint triathlons, half Ironmans, open water swim races. I did a marathon, multiple trail races, and also did a time trial cycling race. So, but I've changed my focus to actually Olympic weightlifting, which is focused on two lifts, the snatch and the clean and jerk. So I started this year. Just something I was looking for my next sport. I was a power lifter in high school. So I competed in powerlifting when I was in high school and continued lifting in college. But always learning, always adapting. I'm always trying to learn something new and become excited about something else.
Did you get inspired to weightlift because somebody that you knew was a weightlifter, or was it because you watched something on the Olympics? What motivated you to that? Of course, it's fitness, but
It's fitness. So, I've continued to lift even through doing triathlons, and I lifted a lot over the winter. But I actually had a patient last summer who we were setting up cataract surgery, and she's in her 60s, and she said, Dr. Stewart, I can't do surgery at this time because I have a meet coming up. And I said, oh, what kind of meet? And she said, she's actually a power lifter. She said, I'm a power lifter. And I said, oh my gosh. And she was telling me about how she started doing it just a few years ago and how excited she was and how she was the oldest person doing it, but how it's changed her life. And it kind of stuck with me for a while, and I filed it away in the back of my mind. And over the winter, it just kept coming back to me. And it took me until March to figure out that I actually wanted to do this. And then COVID hit. But, I've been working with a coach since March and really since
okay.
June. And she actually came back in about 2 months ago. And I shared my story with her. And I said, I bet you don't even remember telling me you're doing this, but a year ago you inspired me. So she's hoping to come to one of my meets in the future.
It's funny because when you talk about this weightlifter who's being scheduled for cataract surgery, we tell these patients they can't lift anything, and she wants to do a full-on powerlifting.
Yes.
My father-in-law has weightlifted his entire life, and I know it's been really great for his health. And one of my friends who's a preventive cardiologist has suggested that even basic amounts of weightlifting are really good for the muscle build that you get, which is really your burning part, your factory, your energy burning part of your body, and it's got to make you exhausted, but not only fit, but it's good for your long term health, isn't it?
It's so great, especially as a woman, building bone density and just continuing to stay active. And it's fun, it's mentally challenging, it's physically challenging. So it's just a great way to just stretch myself and to do something different. I just love the challenge. I'm always looking for a new challenge, and this is definitely one of them.
So you have this practice that you're a partner in, and it's a really successful practice. I want to focus on you having built up a separate sports and performance vision clinic. First of all, what do you do for your patients there?
So we started Performance 2020 in 2016. It's been kind of a dream of mine for the whole time I was in optometry school and practicing. Being a lifelong athlete, I wanted to find a way to combine my love of sports with optometry. And I knew I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. Still, you never know, but
Could be, yeah.
it could be. I've got some time, but finding a way to look forward to going to work and to combine two things that I love. So Performance 2020 is a separate sports and performance vision training center from my practice, where we work with athletes to improve hand-eye coordination, anticipation, decision-making, focus, attention, and we work with them to use both a combination of traditional vision therapy tools and the latest in sports vision technology that's out there.
And it's a referral only clinic. This isn't a primary care clinic.
No, we don't do eye exams. I don't have a lane. There's no optical, no slit lamp, no nothing. It's truly a referral based practice, similar to a vision therapy practice. No insurance. So it's in a sports facility. So we're next to a strength and conditioning group across the hallway from a large physical therapy group and next to a large chiropractor group. So it doesn't feel optometry. It doesn't feel vision. It feels very sports and performance based, which is exactly what we intended.
Are there cross referrals then between the strength and PT groups and your vision performance group?
It's taken a lot of time, but yes. So, I think that's a great way for us to get referrals, and it just takes time. When we opened up, no one had ever heard of sports vision, and most people expected me to be doing eye exams in there, and they didn't really know what to expect. So I spend a lot of time education, outreach, hosting seminars, hosting demos, and really working on getting the word out about what we do. How can we help? And just how can we improve athletes' performance, but how can I make the other people in my group or on our floor better? It's a collaborative approach. We don't work in a vacuum, but if I can make an athlete better, then I'm going to help the strength coach. I'm going to help the physical therapist. I'm going to help that chiropractor, and we can all work together. So it took time. It's nothing that happened overnight. And I'm persistent. I'm patient. I'm diligent. I spend a lot of time cold emailing people and calling, and it just took time to get the word out. But once people understand what we do and how it helps, people were very receptive of the training.
Well, I mean, in the 1980s, 1990 time, was enamored of the sports vision clinic training that we were given as interns at the Illinois College of Optometry. And I find it interesting, some 30 years later, that there isn't a lot of sports vision practice in optometry. Why might that be?
I think there's a lot of disconnect between the interest to do it and then the practical way of how to do it. So, I get so many inquiries from optometrists and not just optometrists, but other people who are interested in the field, but intimidated by starting. And I think I was in the same boat. I kept looking online for this magic blueprint of, okay, it's got to be out there. How do I do this? How do I start? What equipment do I get? How do I do the marketing? And it just didn't exist. So my husband and I started Performance 2020 together, and we just said, we're just going to take a chance, and we're all in. He left his job in the financial sector to do it. So we were all in, but we figured it out how to do it. We made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I think there's just a lot of interest in doing it, but there's the lack of understanding of how to do it. And I work with a lot of optometrists and other professionals, and I tell them there's no right way to do it. And the way I do it looks very different from other ways that other people have done it. But just being passionate about it and trying. And there's no wrong way to do it. But the scariest step is the first one.
And if somebody wanted to know about how to do it, could they contact you at Performance 2020 and get some insights from you?
Absolutely. Our website, there's a great way to reach us. Also, the International Sports Vision Association is a wonderful resource.
Yeah.
I'm on the advisory board, but we have just a great network of optometrists and other professionals, not even in the eye care world. We're looking to build awareness and education for all professionals to understand how this training could benefit their athletes, how we can work together to do it. We have a great conference coming up in February that's going to be chock full of information for everyone from beginners to professional, advanced, all the techniques in between. So it's great to get out there and meet other people who are doing it and network. The meeting in February this past year, it was just great to be around so many people who do the same thing. So finding a group that does it and just networking and learning, that's the best way to do it.
I was just given the opportunity for CE to listen to one of neurooptometry's best, Dr. Len Messner from ICO, talk about uh, chronic chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. And it's a fascinating topic. And obviously, with young contact sport athletes, it's something to pay attention to. Is there any part of your sports vision practice that's attendant to the patients that may have those issues?
So some people do. We didn't focus on the concussion part, as actually a lot of the groups that are in our facility focus on that. So we did a lot of work post concussion. So when they were cleared to return to play, I would work with either the chiropractors or the physical therapists to work on things that might be needed after that. So there are some doctors. Deanne Fitzgerald is just an unbelievably passionate person in the field of sports vision and concussion, who really are taking the primary role in concussion. I took kind of the secondary role more on the performance side, or enhancing as they would return to play.
Got it. All right, let's go back in time.
Oh,
Jennifer
boy.
Story. So, if I understand, your first job was at a resort.
Yes.
And at that resort, you took a lot out of the importance of guest experience. And I'd like to know more about that.
So my first job, my first paying job or real job, was at Mohonk Mountain House in New Paltz, New York, which is in my hometown in the Hudson Valley. It's a beautiful Victorian resort. Think of a combination of Dirty Dancing and The Shining. And that was my summer job. And I worked in the gift shop from the time I was in college, freshman year of college, through right before I went to optometry school. And, I think just what it was ingrained in me from working there was a focus on the guest experience. And they just did such a great job instilling the importance that every person in that whole hotel, whether you were, cleaning the floors or you were the CEO, everyone had a responsibility to put the guest first. And the lessons I learned, when I was 18 years old have stuck with me through my career. And, guest versus patient, to me, it's the same. And every person in my practice, we instill that your first role is to the patient and to make their experience an unbelievable one. And however we do that. So when I worked at Mohonk, things I remember are, no matter where you're going, if a guest asks you a question, you stop and you answer that question, or you bring them to, somebody who can answer if you don't know. But we were empowered to walk them where they needed to go. There was no pointing, oh, the bathroom's over there. No, I'm actually walking that way. Can I escort you? We can walk that way together. But it's things like that. That was 22 years ago, and it stuck with me today. And just the way that they empowered us to learn about the history of the resort and spend time there on our days off, and spend time when we weren't working, to build this family, to make you feel like you're part of a family working somewhere. I hope that I instill that in my staff. I spend more time with my staff than I do at home. So I bring those lessons to the practice even this day.
Well, let's go there. I mean, you obviously must take efforts to optimize the patient experience in the clinic. You are working with your staff, and I think a lot of ECPs do provide in-house training and guidance, but it's hard to enforce when you're in the dark room and back seeing patients and getting stories from other staffers of somebody who might not meet your standard, or worse, from a patient. What can you teach us about how to train it and instill it that can actually help it stick?
I think it starts from me, or it starts from the doctor. And if I walk in there and I'm in a bad mood, and we all have personal things that go in our life, but I put myself on a pedestal and say, if I walk in and I'm in a bad mood and I go into the exam room not really feeling it, I can't expect that my staff are going to have this beaming smile all day. So what we talk about a lot is you leave everything at the door, and you walk in there and the patients don't care what else is going on. And especially this year, I think it's even more important. We've all got a lot on our mind. We're stressed, the world is stressed. But I walk in and say, how can I have a good day today? And I really feel truly blessed with what I do. I come home and I say, my cheeks hurt from laughing and smiling all day. And that's the attitude I try and bring to my staff. And I try and remember every time I walk in that exam room, this is the first time this patient is having this experience this year. It might be the first time they've ever had an eye exam. And this might be the 18th time that I've walked in there and talked about, myopia or glaucoma, or, done what I've, done 18 times in a row. But for this patient, that's the first time. And I have to remember that when I walk in. And we empower the staff to do that too. It might be the 20th time you've checked somebody's eye pressure today, or done an auto refraction, but for the patient, they don't remember last year. So in essence, it's their first time. So we have to have that experience every single time and be consistent. But I think it starts with me. And no one's perfect. I'm guilty of walking in some days and going, okay, whew, look at that schedule and those patients. And I go, no, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to walk in there. And the other thing I try and do is I do this anyway, is compliment each patient on something. It's just my way of walking in and smiling and saying, I love your bag, I love your purse, I like that shirt. And I think it sets a tone for patients, and especially a new patient with masks on, it's really hard to make a connection. So I just try to walk in and set the tone that this is going to be a positive experience. And if you do that every single day and every single patient, the day will fly, and you're going to just see this huge patient satisfaction.
That's a great point. Now let's take that another level. One of the challenges with staff management, and I'm my biggest regret about being in clinic when I was busy wasn't that I couldn't turn it on for the patient, but that I couldn't turn it on for the staff. That when you get kind of back in the back rooms, there were times where I still to this day regret not being the right, giving the right tone or being the right leader for the people. I mean, I was leading, but I had high expectations, and I would try to coach, and my tone would change, and it would be different than I had with the patients. It wasn't hard to get ready for the patient, and I think that that can pervade inside of a clinic with staff. So, like you said, you're not perfect every day. How do you manage that when you want to coach people, and sometimes you have to take more of a business approach, and that can start to cause sort of issues between the people in the clinic as opposed to with the patients?
Right. I think, by nature, I'm kind of an upbeat person. So, I mean, everyone gets a little frustrated, but in general, I walk in and I try and always stay in a good mood. And if I need a break and I need to just go back in my office and like take a second, I do. But I really try hard to keep that attitude. And, I'm a bit silly. I'm a serious person, but I usually am, I laugh a lot. So, I try and go out there and have fun with my staff. And, they know that I have an open door policy, and I really mean that. I'm happy to talk to them after work about issues. So I think they know that I go in there and try and make the day as fun as possible. We work really hard. We are really busy, and we've grown significantly in the time that I've been there. But I try and keep them focused on what we're doing. And sometimes you do need to take a step back and say, what's going on in your life? I noticed that you seem a little frustrated. Is there something in the office? And kind of, it's always a constant reminder. Everyone forgets that we do need to leave our personal stuff aside. And I said, just let's make it happen, and let's get through the day, and let's do it with a smile on our face. And sometimes, like last Monday, I stopped early. I was 5 minutes early, and I picked up coffee for everybody. And just that small, I put a little note on it, Happy Monday, Dr. Stewart. And, just a little thing like that, everyone was like, oh, wow, thank you. It costs nothing, but it starts that Monday off well. And, we have a great staff. We've grown. We just actually hired 3 more people in the last month. So we've got a huge change in dynamic. So, new people can kind of shift that, but stepping in also when there starts to be some issues, getting in there really quickly and nipping it in the bud and stopping that toxic trend that can happen if somebody is unhappy. It pulls the whole group down, and kind of stepping in there and stopping it right away before it pervades through the whole staff.
And the staff people that are having observations of somebody who's having a tough time, seeing the leader go in and intervene sounds like a hard word, but
Yeah.
create a connection. They appreciate it. They see that.
And they know, I say sometimes I go in and go, woof, oh, today's gonna be a tough day, and I'm human, and I don't walk in there and pretend I'm not human and that nothing bothers me. But I try and lighten the load and make it just, we look. There's always going to be a patient that can bring it down, and I said, but look at the other patients that left happy, and let's read the reviews that we get. I read every single patient review that comes through. I print them out, I highlight them, and I show everybody. So anytime that one unhappy patient can make everybody feel frustrated and down. And I said, but look at all these reviews. Look at these. Look at what people have said about you. And it's not about me. It's about you. And it's about this person, what you did to go above and beyond to make their experience great. That's what we focus on, not not feeling down about anything.
Well, speaking of the customer experience training you've had, I understand you're a Disney fanatic.
I am.
And as we're talking about things that happen in front of patients, I think of Disney's phrase of on stage and how even things that are backstage are still on stage if the guests, our patients, have access to them. That might be where our staff leaves their coffee cups on a counter that they walk by. So you say you've read pretty much every Disney management book. And I guess I'd be curious if you influence your business styles with Disney management pearls. What would you share with us?
I think it's just that you are always on stage, and that's how I feel when I walk in. Look, I'm an extrovert by nature, so it's really not hard for me to walk into an exam room. I joke I could have a conversation with a wall, but for some people, that's more of a challenge, and they have to kind of be in their role. And for me, it's quite easy, but I have to remember it might not be that easy. And we do talk about that. You're on stage the minute you punch in and there's a patient in that office, you are on stage, and everything you're doing, they're watching. And especially, we don't have anyone in the waiting room right now, but we've all been in doctors' offices where you hear people talking about another patient, or you hear them talking about another staff member, and it's very uncomfortable. So we have a large office now. We were in a smaller space when I first started, and it was easier for me and harder for the staff because I could hear everything. I heard everything in the optical. I could hear everything at the front desk. So, it was very easy to jump in and say, I noticed, I overheard this. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. So, it's now I'm not, we have a large office, so I can't hear everything, but I try and be visible and be out and about and not be sitting in my office. But, I think really it all comes down again to the patient experience, or in Disney, the guest experience. I love going and there's you never see garbage, you never see anyone picking up garbage. Everyone's happy, everyone's trying to help you, and that's what I try and instill in our staff. There's no, it's not my job, or I don't know how to do that. It's how can I figure it out, and how can I find you the right person to get that answer? And again, it starts from the top. I'm the first one to answer the phone if it's busy. It's sometimes I go, oh gosh, I don't know how to answer that. But I think if I sat there and let the phone ring and said it's not my job, that's not the type of leadership that instills people to want to act. And I am the first one to pick out the garbage. I vacuum. I can do everything, and I really like to show that I'm part of the team. So I hope that they feel the same. And we say everyone in our office is cross-trained to do everything, and we expect people to jump in and help, because it's all about getting the patients what they need, whoever can do that.
I find myself going to Disney now, grading how well the Disney people do at what they're supposed to do. My daughter was a college program intern at Disney, got taught everything from the proper finger pointing with multiple fingers to, every little detail. And There are times even where they, as a 75,000 plus employer, few less now that they've done some reductions, um, don't always carry through on their own. And the point is that it's an ongoing, never ending process to optimize the relationship that you have with your team so they have the right relationship with their guests, their patients. Let's go back to the practice. So you've optimized patient workflow systems, and you and I have never talked about this. Can you give me a walkthrough of a primary care patient experience at your clinic? What is it like from the moment I park in the parking lot till the moment I get the chance to check out?
Well, it's different now, but
Yeah, yeah.
obviously we're doing the COVID procedure. So, we
Assuming all of that,
assuming all of that. So, we've really worked hard to make the patient experience very efficient. And I'm a stickler for running on time. And that I think is just a huge part of for me, the patient experience. So, we're very, very detailed on how we schedule. And I'm a stickler for making sure patients are scheduled before they even walk in the office correctly. But one of the greatest, we just had a new about a month ago in the front desk, and she comes from a dental practice. And the second day she came back and knocked on my door and said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" We all go, "Oh gosh, oh, what is she?" And she said, I've never been in a business that runs on time." And I said, "What?" And she said, "In the dental office I worked at, it wasn't uncommon that people waited 2 hours." And I said, "Oh my gosh." And I said, I'm listening where every patient is. I'm listening. I've got my watch. I'm a stickler for time. So, we try and get the patient in the minute they walk in, especially now, we don't want them sitting. So they check in, and we've changed a little bit now that we have more front desk people, but we utilize scribes. So the scribe usually takes the patient as soon as they're checked in, starts pre-testing them, and brings them back into the exam room. They do all of the kind of the pre-work, checking visual acuity, history, everything, getting the phoropter set. They know where I like my pen. They know how I want the sheet of paper. They know what line I want on the chart. They know how I want the phoropter set up so that when I walk in, I'm ready to go. I'm not fiddling around. Um, we spent a couple of years ago, I spent time tracking how long it took from the minute the patient checked in to when they got to the optical. And I put a sticky note on every chart to see how long that was. And it's surprising, there's a lot of time wasted. So we worked really hard to make that more efficient because I want the patient having more time in the optical. I don't want them feeling rushed. So once we started using scribes, that really helped because my exam time, came way, way down, but it allows me more time to talk. And we don't overschedule. We leave a lot of time for me. We joke to do what I do best is to chat and talk and, build a relationship with patients and really get to know what they do, who they are, what makes them happy. And that helps me translate into the optical. And I really see a big tie-in with that about, I have so many patients say, no one's ever asked me how many monitors I have and how long I spend on the computer and what sports I play. And, do I play indoor tennis, outdoor tennis, paddle? What's the difference? Well, you haven't met me yet. So, so our exams are extremely efficient with the scribes, but I still spend a lot of time in there, both chatting and getting to really deeply dive into that patient.
That's wonderful. So you're clearly driven by data. There is a lot of data elements or practice indicators that ECPs can use to measure their business. Do you see a data element or two that is typically not paid attention to by ECPs? I love the time one. We've already talked about that. But are there any others that you don't see people paying attention to that they should?
I think a lot of people aren't paying attention to any, so it's a little intimidating at first. So most of the time, none. So, but I think it can be intimidating again, just, going back to sports vision to take that first step. And, I think we all know we should be monitoring, but we often think we don't have the time. And, I agree to sit down and spend a full day diving into our numbers. That's really intimidating, and most of us just can't. But I think there's just so many metrics you can measure, but you have to know what you're looking at and have a plan. And it's not enough to say, I'm just going to watch you know, my frame capture rate or my overall capture rate or my average optical per patient sale. it's great to watch numbers and it's great to look at them. But if you don't know what you're analyzing, figuring out what could be going wrong, setting a plan in place, and then reassessing that, it's really hard just to watch the numbers. So, I think looking at 2 or 3 metrics and just getting a pulse on your practice, whatever they may be. And, it could be as simple as how many patient-owned frames are you using? That's a good first one. And I think that's an easy one. How many people are using their own frames? I bet most people don't know. And we assume it's very few. And most of us say, oh, well, none, because my opticians are rock stars and, they're selling frames to everybody. But when you look, it can be surprising. And, kind of looking is one thing, but it's not enough to go in and say to opticians, stop letting people use their own frames. The opticians go, you don't sit here, you don't deal with that.
Right.
But, first addressing the issue and then looking at why is it happening and talking to the opticians. Are we missing, a lower segment price point that, maybe we don't have that? Do we not have men's frames for large heads? What are we missing? And coming up with an approach, fixing that, and then saying, okay, now for the next 3 months, I'm going to be tracking that. And here's some dialogue. Are we utilizing everybody's insurance? Let's come up with a plan. In 3 months, let's reassess where we are. Great, we're doing well, but don't let it go away either. Don't go, well, and staff are smart. Sometimes they know, oh, Dr. Stewart's on this one. She's going to be riding us about this. But you know what? If we just let her go for a few months, she'll forget about it. So, staying on track. And it's a lot. It's, it can be overwhelming, but picking 2 or 3 of those and just having this constant plan and figuring out how to make changes and keep going, I think that makes it a lot less intimidating.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So obviously, you've really accomplished a lot at a young age, and you've done this as a fearless business leader. You have all this energy, and you obviously have this engaged family life. You're even in business with your husband. So tell us about the unique challenges and opportunities to being a woman in optometry.
I think, I just think optometry is a wonderful career for women. And, even I graduated in 2007 and now, I love looking at the data of the classes and how much the classes have even changed since I was in school where it's primarily women. And I just think it's such a great field for us because it can address the way I went into optometry because I love people and I love helping people, but I also love business. And I think it's a great way to combine the two because I can run them, they're separate businesses. My clinical practice is very different from my optical practice. And I love both. And I love being able to kind of be have them intertwined and see my patients, but also manage a business. So I think it just gives us such opportunity. And I think just for women in general, we have so many ways that we can practice optometry. You might have a passion. I have a friend who has a passion for dry eye, and she's got this unbelievable clinic in Oregon where she is really utilizing all of the greatest technologies in dry eye, and she's going back to school for nutrition. So she really is focused on the ocular health, but also how people can help their bodies. And just to look at that and go, I'm doing sports vision, she's working on nutrition, but we're in the same profession and we find our passions and we can really run with them. I have other friends who love pediatrics and are really focused on myopia management or vision therapy. So I think just we have this ability to take a career and run with whatever fills our passion and just makes us excited to go to work every day. And that might look different for all of us.
That's wonderful. Can you give advice to these young women who are in optometry school today about how to choose the early part of their career? I'd be really interested where you might direct somebody who calls you up and says, I'm a third year. What opportunity should I pursue that gives me the greatest opportunity to grow and really impact patients?
I think, looking deep down at what makes you happy and realizing that you don't have to do everything. I don't enjoy seeing kids. I'm not a pediatric. I have 2 young children. I just don't have a passion for pediatrics, but luckily I have an associate who does. And I also, I'm not, glaucoma doesn't excite me. I treat glaucoma, but I don't wake up excited to, think about glaucoma. And luckily, my associate also loves glaucoma. So I think first is figuring out what makes you happy, what would engage you to go and read and, on your days off and really have an opportunity to do things outside of practice. What makes you want to learn after you're seeing patients. And if there's nothing, don't worry. Sometimes it doesn't come to you until later. sometimes you might think you have a passion for one thing, and then you start doing it and go, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought at all. And that's the benefit of optometry, is we can be primary care practitioners and do what we went to school for, but then also fill our cup with maybe a side clinic or something else that we get to do. And it might not come right away. I mean, I practiced for almost 10 years before I started my sports vision practice. And I've been out, gosh, 13 years now. And I'm just realizing I have this passion for data and speaking and helping other doctors improve their business. So that took me 13 years to realize, to have the confidence to do it. And, I don't think anyone expects a first year doctor to go out and, have this earth shattering revelation about what they're supposed to do. And it might take 5 years, it might take 10, it might take 20, but keep thinking about the different parts of optometry and what interests you, what other people are doing, and gravitate towards that.
So, one other thing on that topic, for the women in the audience that are in optometry, what kind of organizations are available that they may not have seen or checked out that you would recommend they look at or join?
Women in Optometry has a great podcast series, magazine, online presence, and I read every article, I listen to every podcast, and it's just unbelievable to listen to what women have done and all of the different things that they've thought about that I would have never thought about. And just listening to what brought them into optometry, what path they took. It's not everybody graduates from optometry school, starts a private practice, and then is successful. None of us really have probably had a straight path to where we are. So I think that makes it more interesting and it makes it more real. And it's not that everyone figures out what they want to do day one. And just listening to those stories and thinking like, oh wow, she did it, maybe I could do that. And I always say I'm no smarter than anyone, I'm no more talented than anyone, but I really have this persistence and this quest for learning. And actually I had a weightlifting session this morning with my coach, and he said, you're a great student. And I said, I just like to learn. If you teach me, or if you give me the opportunity to learn, I will go with it. And I want to learn everything possible about what I'm doing. And that might be Olympic weightlifting. I want to learn why I'm doing something. So for me, just having this ability to learn as much as possible and continue to see patients, surround yourself with people who are passionate about optometry, surround yourself with people who are passionate about growing their businesses. I have a little small group of friends that we text and call each other every single day. We're scattered around the country, but we're in contact every day about what's going on in our practice. This happened today. What frame line are you using? How are you tackling this? So there's other people out there, and we're all experiencing the same challenges, the same excitement, the same, different things that we're dealing with in optometry. We're not alone. So they're all out there. I have another friend another woman who just started a cold practice this summer, and it's been great to watch that and to watch her success. And I didn't start cold, but I'm a good sounding board for helping her and just helping her be successful and saying, you can do this. I have no doubt that you will be successful, and how can I help?
Optometrists are so collegial. It's such an important part of the profession. All right. So, as we wind down, is there any last bit of wisdom that you want to share? Anything that you've thought about, but I haven't given you a chance to mention?
I think, just going back to what we talked about, we're so lucky to do what we do. And I think we get stuck in the trenches of optometry often, and we can easily get down with, managed care and staff issues and, all of the things, that are coming down the pike, and telemedicine and CVS, that's today. And, all these things that we can easily be frustrated with and can burden us. And something I say to a lot of the students who come shadow me, or I speak to our undergrad, I speak to the pre-med students, and I say, anything you read on the internet about optometry, take with a grain of salt. The things that you're reading, the bad things you read about it, I barely have time during the day to go to the bathroom. I am certainly not posting on forums, and I'm not posting about the hardships of optometry because I'm so busy. So, there are people out there who are realizing their dreams, setting their steps to do it, and, working really hard. Surround yourself with those people, and you just find your goals and just go for it. the sky is the limit in optometry, and we can do anything we really want. So just take that first step and find a group to help you and just go for it.
Well, Dr. Jennifer Stewart, thank you so much for your time and sharing these great personal stories. I'm grateful.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my goal with Sandbox Stories is to bring unique perspective. And when it comes to people like you, I'm confident that our audience has benefited from getting to know you. And I really hope we can stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Everybody, until my next Sandbox story, be great at all you do.